And now, it is my great pleasure to announce Carolyn Brent. Carolyn is an author of the book, Why Wait? The Baby Boomer's Guide to Preparing Emotionally, Financially, and Legally for a Parent's Death. Carolyn received a BA in Business Administration from the National University in Los Angeles, California, and an MBA at the University of Phoenix. Go University of Phoenix, that's where I'm going to school. She currently resides in Northern California, and she's here with us today to provide some wonderful insight. So please pay close attention and give a warm welcome to Carolyn Brent. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I would like to, first of all, thank the Women in Trade for allowing me the opportunity to be a supporting speaker here at the Women's Forum. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Before we get started, I want to share a story, what I think changing lanes means to me. For 17 years, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry thinking that I'm going to make a career out of this. I absolutely love what I do. Being a clinical education manager, I travel around the country. I work with some of the smartest researchers on the planet when it comes to medicine. But one day, unexpectedly, I had an emergency in my life. And that was when my father needed me to help him. And that changed my lane from that being in the pharmaceutical industry to what I'm doing today. Now, I didn't go to school to be a keynote speaker or to write about elder care or to talk about elder care or to be an advocate, but sometimes things happen in our life when it comes unexpectedly that will force that change, and I call it a calling. So now I'm working my passion, which means to me, I'm not going to work every day. This is not work to me. This is my passion. So thank you again for allowing me to be here. Behind the story of the pelican, on my book, I actually put a picture of a pelican. And most people said, Carolyn, why? You're talking about death and dying. Why do you have a picture of a pelican on your book? And I said, you know what? I'm from Denver, Colorado, and back in 30 years ago, or maybe 40 years ago, I was watching what is known as Soul Train. Do you know what Soul Train is? Okay, it was in December, January, February, and March. I'm 9 years old, looking at Soul Train, seeing the girls with bikinis on and their hot pants on, and I'm looking out the window, literally where I lived, and it was 20 below zero with snow. And I'm going, why are they dressed like that? It's snowing every place around the world. Why are they dressed like that? And then I discovered in California, the sun would shine in December and October, the winter months. And, you know, people can wear the shorts and the palm trees, etc. And I said, you know what? When I grow up, I'm going to change lanes and I'm moving to California where the sun is shining. So I ended up getting on, as back in those days, called an airline stewardess. So it gave me an opportunity to be based in Los Angeles to actually live there. And one particular winter afternoon, I had sent for my father. My father and I were very close. He raised me as a single parent. And because the airline ticket at that time for first class was $10.50, I said, for Dad's birthday present, I'm going to send him to California with me, and we're going to go to the beach and see the sun shining. Because after all, in March in Colorado, it's 20 below zero and snow. So Dad, every year we would celebrate his birthday or around his birthday with his frequent visits. But on this one particular day, it was a dreary day in sunny California. There was mist in the sky. The moon was, glistening on the beach, the silhouette of the moon. And Dad and I were walking hand in hand on the beach, looking at the beautiful sand. And of course, people from California, they're going like, it's cold here. We're not going to go to the beach. But coming from Colorado, that was a heat wave for us. So Dad and I were sitting on the beach. We found a comfortable place to sit. And my father, he was a pastor. And he said, Carolyn, do you see that pelican flying over there? And I said, yeah, Dad, that's a beautiful pelican. I love that pelican. And he said, imagine that pelican having only one job to do in life, and that is to take one grain of sand off of the earth and putting it in its pouch and flying to the moon and dropping that grain of sand off, and then coming back and getting all the sand back and forth until there's no more sand on the earth left. And I said, okay, Dad, so what? And Dad said, how long do you think it would take the pelican to remove all the sand off the face of the earth? And I looked at Dad like, okay, that's a real strange question, because the pelican can never, ever finish that job. And I thought, okay, Dad's going to use some pastoral stuff. I mean, here we go. Dad looked me straight in the eye, and he said, Carolyn, it will take forever, eternity, for the pelican to do the job. The pelican can never finish doing that job. But one day, Carolyn, I'm going to be going to glory, and I'm not going to be with you here on this planet. And I'm going like, oh, wait, I don't want to talk about that. I do not want to talk about it. But he said, I want you to remember when you're sad and when I'm gone, you think about that pelican, and that pelican represents my spirit with you, and my love will be with you for eternity. And that was a conversation I didn't want to have. A matter of fact, I do believe I tried to skip the subject. I thought, Dad is only 50. I'm only 21 years old. I don't want to talk about this. Surely death is so far away. That's for old people. That's what I thought. But now I stand before you. I'm 55 years old. And now I share with people, it's time to wake up and have that crucial conversation. And the way I like to share the story is that we are living in a society where it's anti-aging. So we get our Botox, our tummy tucks, our weaves, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But imagine discovering the art of embracing the art of aging and having those conversations. And that's why I wrote the book. I became an accidental expert due to circumstance. Okay. What is a baby boomer? If you were born between 1947 and 1964, you are a baby boomer. We used to say we are the yuppie generation, and now we are just called the Medicare generation. Okay. 79 million baby boomers live here in the U.S. alone, the ones that are citizens, with an estimated 13 million of those baby boomers, they're taking care of their sick and elderly parents. And 25% of those baby boomers, mom and dad has moved into the house. Imagine if you have parents that are sick and elderly, and you have a spouse, and you have kids, and you have grandkids. Imagine what changing the lanes is going to mean for you when someone ill moves into your home. Every single day here in the U.S., there's 10,000 U.S. citizens that's turning 65 years of age. So what does that mean? That means that they're applying for Medicare, they're applying for Social Security, and that can be an economic hardship if we don't wake up and plan for our own future. And that's what I'm really all about, is prepare. You don't have to be a baby boomer to prepare. Anybody, I think everyone should have something in writing in order to plan for end of life. This is my dad, Dr. William L. Brent. He is my heart. He is with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we speak in the spirit. Because after all, I remember the pelican every single day, and that helps me to mindfully do my grieving. And I put a smile on my face because Dad is with me. Why have the crucial conversations? Okay, Dad, he had that crucial conversation with me for 30 plus years. All the time Dad would come out and visit, he'll say, Carolyn, I want you to be my fiduciary. I want you, which handle his finances. Should something happen to me? And I said, surely nothing's going to happen to you, Dad. Nothing. And Dad said, no, Carolyn, when the time comes and I'm gonna need you, I want you to be available. But in my heart, my Superman, my hero, he was never gonna get sick. Ever, ever, ever. So I always said, okay, Dad, if something happens to you, because I'm still in denial, I'm going if. And think about this. We were born to die, but why won't we talk about the crucial conversations of death and dying? It's just a part of life. When I was thinking of a name for my book, the sub-name, everybody said, oh, don't put the word death on there. And my father, in the spirit, he named the book Why Wait, literally at 2:30 in the morning. And he said, put the word death on there so people, the Americans, can wake up. There's 3 emotional conversations that everyone should have in their family. First of all, you need emotional conversation, financial conversation, and legal conversation. Now, what do I mean by emotional conversations? There's a doctor by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and I wish I knew about her work as, talking about the 5 stages of grieving. Because I started grieving the first time my father got lost. He was living with me, I'm in my home office and I'm doing my work, and Dad pokes his head in my home office and says, Carolyn, I'm gonna go down the street to the grocery store to get some sweets. Do you want anything? And I'm busy, no Dad, dinner will be on the table as soon as you get back home. Okay, Dad never came back home. And I'm rushing to the grocery store, 2 hours later looking for him, asking everyone, have you seen my dad? Have you seen my dad? 24 hours later, I found my father. He was in Yuba City, California, 100+ miles away looking for my house. So that's why it's crucial to have those conversations. And Kubler-Ross really eloquently talks about it. First, we're in denial. I was always in denial. But I sobered up when my dad got lost. I sobered up, had a shot of caffeine saying, I gotta really, really take a look at getting a more secure environment for my father, because he was early stages of dementia. Then it's anger. Then I'm going, why me, Lord? Why? I'm at the top of my career, and I had to switch occupations in order to stay at home to care for my father. And then the bargaining, like, okay, Dad, if you just let me take away the keys from you, you don't have to go to private assisted living if you just don't get in your car and drive. Then the depression, I felt a lot of depression because my superhero was turning into a child. And then acceptance. I'm at the acceptance stage now, but I have to tell you, it was not an overnight experience for me to get there. I'm still trying to accept things to this day, and the last time I saw my dad was in 2008. But I'm doing something about the grieving by literally educating the world on what they need to do in order to create change. Now, this emotional goes to the sibling rivalry or families. There was 8 of us in my family. All of us were on different stages or at different stages at different times. So imagine the confusion going on in my family when at the time I wasn't married, didn't have children, and my family said, oh, Carolyn, you're single, you don't have any kids, you take care of Dad. But as soon as there was a sudden, unexpected emergency and they thought Dad was dying, guess what? 12 years later, I'm in probate court. And I'm going, in probate court? That's why it's so imperative to prepare. The next slide is financial responsibilities. Most people, they don't realize the expense of what it takes. And I'm only hitting the tip part because in 40 minutes, I can't go through everything. But in my book, I go into greater detail. Financial, it cost me, I paid $2,000, this was back in 1997, per month for private assistant living for my dad. I thought, okay, I'm working, so I gotta support Dad, and I'm supporting me, and I'm working, I'm doing all these things. But it's a continuum effect. As soon as I would think Dad was settled, and I say, I got it this time, I got it. I could work, and I could, have, the private assistant living to help me with Dad. Then I get another phone call at 3 a.m. saying there's another unexpected emergency. So guess what? The price goes up. So Finally, at the end of the stay that I was paying for my dad, $6,500 a month. And I have to share with folks, the government will not give you a dime towards that. Private assisted living is not free. You have to either self-finance, get yourself your property or things in order as far as having a long-term care plan or have money or what have you. How many people can spare, you know, $6,500 a month? That was a hardship on me. And to show you what a hardship it was on me, I had accidentally broke my own foot. I broke my 5th metatarsal. And guess what? I didn't think that I had broken my foot. I just thought that my bottom of my foot had turned purple for some strange reason. I couldn't figure it out. So a friend of mine said, Carolyn, I think you should go to the doctor. You may have broken something, and I'm in denial again because I have all of these expenditures. And I said, oh, no, I didn't break anything, but I'll just see if the doctor could take that purple away from my foot. And then the orthopedic surgeon, I'm walking in his office, excuse me, but with high heels on, walking like this in his office. Oh, my foot hurts. And the doctor said, you're walking in my office with high heels on? Are you crazy? He took an x-ray. I had broken the 5th metatarsal in 5 different areas, and he told me, you're going to have to get a cast, and you're going to have to stay off your foot for at least 3 months. I said, you must be crazy. Although that there are, you know, the Family Medical Leave Act, in the industry where I'm from, they'll say, oh yeah, we'll keep your job, but if your job is dependent on your last sales performance, guess what? All of a sudden, you're displaced and you are unemployed. So I chose to put the cast on. I went to work the next day with crutches and a cast. Boy, I did sell a lot of products over the next 3 months. The doctors are like, you are crazy. And I said, look, I have mortgage, I have bills to pay. But the bottom line, that was long-term effects that I have to this day because I was afraid to take off. So planning is very key. Over $45 billion are spent every year in California by services for caregivers that are not getting paid a dime. I was a caregiver. Many of you, any caregivers in the house? Okay. And I take my hat off. Let's give caregivers a hand. I love caregivers. Caregiving is expensive. The older a person gets, the more expensive it is for them to live on this planet. And just long-term care, just so you'll know, it can start as literally at $8,000 a month and go all the way up to $100,000+ per month. So that's why I tell people to prepare. Legal documents. Many people, when I was doing my book tour, they say, you know what? I've tried to have that crucial conversation with my mom and dad, and they don't want to have no conversation. They're not hearing it. And this is what I share with them. It's important for everyone because we don't know if there's going to be a sudden, unexpected emergency. So to have a health care directive, like if something happens to you, if you get run over by a bus, what are your wishes? Do you want them to put you in a home for the rest of your life? Do you want to be on respite? Do you want XYZ medication? What are your wishes? What legacy, mom and dad, do you want to leave behind? I think that's an easier way to navigate into that crucial conversation. Power of attorney. Everyone needs a power of attorney. Right now, I have been working tirelessly, and also John Sandiford and Martin Brewer, we have been lobbying with our U.S. Congress and our state senators because there's so many holes and gaps and loopholes in a power of attorney. Because anybody, like in my family, I cared for my dad for 12 years. My father had everything in writing with the federal government. We thought we had everything in plan, but we didn't have anything with the state. So one of my siblings that all of a sudden wanted to take over, she goes through the state, she sues me, and she gets power of attorney. Now that is happening right now, and I'm working, next year the laws will be changed because I'm going to see to it. I've been beating down the doors since 2008, and they're finally listening to me. I can't believe it. Finally. Okay, living trust and a will. A living trust, there's a difference between the two, and people get very confused. To make it simple, a will is just something that you want people to know what your wishes are. And a living trust, the way I like to describe it, and there's a woman that I interviewed, her name is Carolyn Rosenblatt, and she is a geriatric attorney / RN. And it was so wonderful the way she eloquently talked about a trust, because people are very confused about trust. So I have my own little gift box. This right here is, pretend like this gift box is your trust account, your trust, your living trust or your revocable trust. Everything you put in this gift box right here, you're gifting it to people, but that trust will be in effect only after you are dead. So if you have a disgruntled sibling that wants to sue the estate, when it's in a trust, it's totally protected. So the person could take you to court, but the judge will just throw it out. So that's what a trust is. An extra bonus. Have anyone ever heard of a sibling contract? Woohoo! I wish I would have known about the sibling contract. A sibling contract is when your siblings are, and maybe 5% of the attorneys in the U.S. knows about this contract or it exists. But a sibling contract simply is when family members say, you know, Carolyn, that girl, you're doing a great job. Put that in writing, because at the back end of caregiving, that's when all of the problems begin. Because people are grieving and they don't know how to grieve, so they may attack the one and only caregiver. I was attacked, and I tell you, I didn't want to get out of bed. I felt like I was in a cage with a lion being mauled, and I had no strength to do anything. But I'm here to tell you, if I had to do it all over again with the knowledge I have, I would have had a sibling contract, and Dad, his final wishes would have been in place. But when you have 8 kids and 8 people have different ideas as to what's going on, that's when the problems begin, especially if they smell money. That's the key. Right now, I tell everyone, know your rights. Oh, it's amazing. I've been on hundreds of radio shows, television shows, and also I do social media 24/7. And it's amazing. People do not know their basic rights. I believe it's your own responsibility. Take responsibility for yourself. Put things in writing. The federal doesn't agree with the state doesn't agree with the federal. So I always share with people, make sure all your wishes are in both federal and state together to cover yourself. Right now, I've been working tirelessly, as I said, with our U.S. Congress and also our state. They're finally listening. They had me as a speaker this past Tuesday. It was called the Oversight Hearing, trying to save programs for our seniors and our caregivers. And I was up there for 5 hours. And I just felt so compassionate towards the seniors, because my dad is no longer here. But I still care, because what's going to happen to us, baby boomers, the yuppie generation, if we don't change the laws to protect us? And that's what I'm doing right now with our government to see that our laws are protected. Why are people afraid about talking about death and dying? Once again, we live in a society where, basically, the anti-aging movement. We all want to look beautiful, but there's nothing wrong with looking beautiful and say, hey, I'm proud to be 55 and kicking. Because that means that's one more day that God has blessed you with. I am so proud. You'll never hear me go, oh, don't tell your age. That's not cool to do. Oh no, I'll tell my age. I'll tell it in a heartbeat. We're very proud. Right on. Okay, so just imagine in your own mind discovering the art of aging gracefully. Every day, I work out every day. I have to. It helps my back. It helps my psyche. I give Carolyn the first of each day. Most mothers, they're taking care of husbands, their kids, their grandkids, everyone but themselves, and they're toe up from the flow up and tired. But you gotta give yourself at least 1 hour. And what I do every day, I will go to an in-shape pool, and I will just meditate and be in my own little world, talking to God and talking to my Father. That's what I do. I've changed my diet. This is how you age gracefully, y'all. I used to love eating dairy, just love it, but dairy hated me. And I continued to eat dairy over and over, cheese this, hamburgers that. And then finally one day I woke up, I said, why am I feeding myself something, a poison, it was poison for my body, that my body didn't want. So I checked myself in as a caregiver to this place called the Optimum Health Institute in San Diego. I cleansed my body, and boy, it was a cleansing. You got to do like colon cleansers every day. And I've never been to a place where poop was the #1 conversation. I mean, that was. It's like, okay. So now when I come home, I tell John about my poop, and John's like, Carolyn, too much information. But anyway, I've changed my diet. That helps me to feel better. Exercise helps me to feel better. Meditation helps me to feel better. But most importantly, I've changed from being around negativity to positivity. I've changed from being with the family that was totally dysfunctional. I knew they were dysfunctional. But now I accept and embrace where I am, so I have a great extended family. And this is my extended family. My play son over there, that's Martin Brew, he's from Ghana, and I just love him to death. And he calls me mom, I call him son. And then, of course, John Sandifer, he's my #1. What can I say? He's just everything. Okay, so I guess the takeaway, and I have a few more minutes to get questions. Now is the time, young ladies and men. Now is the time. Women and men changing lanes. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. So why wait? That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, please. I'd like to hear from anyone. No questions. Thank you very much. Oh, there's one question.
Hi, my name is Mia Simone, and I just would like to know the name of that place in San Diego you went to.
It's called the Optimum Health Institute, and it's a vegan. It's everything's raw vegan, and then you're juicing for 3 days, and then you're having colon cleansers, and what they're doing is a detox program to totally cleanse the body and jumpstart it again. I embrace it. And one of my media coaches told me about it, and that's how I found out about it. Yes?
The living trust, once you get that, shouldn't you have it updated too? Because
Absolutely.
Right.
You definitely want to get your living trust. Just so everyone to know, a living trust, they're not cheap. They rock bottom price starts at approximately $2,000, and you definitely want to get it updated, but you do not have to pay an attorney to update it. You could update it yourself and just keep adding things in it over and over and over again. But you want to keep it in a very, very safe place, like maybe a bank or something, where you could get your hands on it should you need to get your hands on the living trust. Yes?
I think you're great, Carolyn. And probate is much more expensive than a living will. Is that not true?
Absolutely. What you want to do is avoid probate by having all of your paperwork in order. Our courts are bulging with families, and trust me, they'll be fighting over a tablecloth, a shoe, I mean, all kind of stuff. AARP endorsed my book because there were no books on the market to address what I have addressed directly by interweaving my information with my dad, as far as my story with my dad, with what I would have done differently had I known. Like being kicked out of the hospital, that's another story. Medicare said, oh, your dad keeps pulling out his IV, so he doesn't qualify. So imagine somebody calling you from the hospital saying, come get your dad, or it's going to cost you $3,000 a day. That happened to me. I didn't know any better, and I took my dad after having brain surgery because he kept pulling the IV out of his arm, and had I known that that was illegal, I never would have taken Dad out. And I ended up putting Dad in another expensive place because, of course, You know, there's a lot of senior dumping going around, a lot of senior dumping. I keep it real. When I talk to legislation members, I keep it real, I keep it real, I keep it real, because they need to know what's really, really happening out there. And if we don't stand up and voice what's going on, then guess what? I kept wondering, this is why I wrote the book. I said, why haven't anybody written a book about sibling rivalry? There were no books on the market. And I said, you know what? People need to know. Not every family are the Cleavers. My family was far from otherwise.
Hi, I enjoyed your presentation. I did have a question, and I also wanted to get some insight and some follow-up from you in regards to ways to approach opening the conversation. Right now, my grandfather is 98. He just turned 98 in February. And I was just in Florida earlier this week talking to him. And so he still doesn't have a will, won't do one. And I know we had a scare a few years back. And when we were talking about the dysfunction and some other things, especially if money is involved and whatnot, and just, just even talking to him about trying to do a will or a living trust, he won't do it. And so since technically he's still in his right mind and he's functioning and capable and he drives and does everything, is there something or some way to kind of introduce that where we can kind of put it out there on the table? Because I already know there's like 23 aunts and uncles, because this is my grandfather's, 23 of them, and I know it's going to be drama.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to prevent the fallouts down the road, because right now I know that there is money, but nobody seems to be sure in terms of how much. So how to introduce ways of trying to get him to consider doing that?
That is an excellent question. I get that question consistently. And what you may want to try is embrace your grandfather and say, Granddaddy, you know what? I need your help. This is how I use the reverse psychology on my dad all the time. I need your help, Granddad. If something happened to you, what would be your 5 wishes that you would want? And you'll be amazed at when you ask them for your help, they're going to give you some help. That's what I have found. So give that a try and take my number and ask me and let me know if it worked. But ask them, I really need your help. If something happened, what 5 wishes? And then he'll say, well, he'll tell you what his 5 wishes are. And the bottom line is family legacy. You want your family to have a very, very positive legacy at the coffin. I just went to a funeral a week ago, Mrs. King, here of Tracy, 102 years old, and her caregiver was 66 years old, Bernice. I went there and she looked like a beautiful angel. There was no drama because prior planning. So definitely let me know. I'm sorry.
Good morning. To help answer your question, my name's Alfred Rose. I'll be doing a talk later on financial planning, but the way I approached addressing that with your parents or elderly grandparents is you target the cost in not doing anything. So in other words, you've worked hard for your estate, you've built up your net worth. Does it bother you that 50 grand might go to an attorney through the probate court? Does it bother you that estate taxes are 40% of your estate if you're over the threshold limit? So here you've worked hard to build up your net worth, you've worked hard to build up your estate. And to have that go to an attorney, for one, how does that affect you? How does that bother you? Does it bother you? The whole idea is we don't want to be greedy as the inherited children, but the idea is just to let them know that if they don't do anything, there's a huge cost. And does that affect them, and does it bother them because they've worked so hard to build up their estate to where it is? So that's what I've tried.
That's excellent. Another thing that is really imperative, I ask people, do you want the state to tell your family what to do with your money, the state? Because that's a stranger. So thank you so much for adding that. I really
Okay, we're going to take one more, Carolyn.
Okay.
Hi, I just want to sort of piggyback on what you've said. We're living in proof, my sister and I, who's sitting behind me. My father, when we told him about a living trust, he just didn't want to hear anything about it because he was very secretive. And a lot of older people are, because money was hard to come by. which he had plenty of. And anyway, what happened was we did it piecemeal. One week we would talk about living trust, and another week we would talk about, do you really want the state to have that money that you worked so hard for? And he started looking at it in a different way. My sister said, well, you have to just really hit him where he lives, and that's where if you make a nickel, you have to save 3 cents. So he was one of those people, and he finally did it. He was so pleased and happy that he did do that. Things were in order. And so when he did pass away, it was a very simple just transition, and the things that we had to do were just very simple. There were no problems. And so a living trust, I really feel, is the way to go.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Margie.
Thank you very much.
Carolyn, hang on a second. Thank you. Of course we thank you. I've known Carolyn a very long time. And
How
we
many
present
years have we known each other?
30. I don't know. We both look good at for our age, huh?
Yes, you do.
Thanks, Grace. But we just thank you, Carolyn, for coming and sharing with the women and sharing with TWFA.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.